Okay, so if you're like me, you cringed when you watched the tracker removal scene in Total Recall when Arnold Schwarzenegger takes the tracker out of his nose. But what if I told you that was actually a real surgery and it cures cancer and it used to be used to treat diabetes back in the 1960s? Watch this video and I'll tell you why. So let's watch this together. All right, so he's loading it up, he's taking a deep breath because he's putting it in his nostril. He's kind of angling a little too high. It's actually supposed to kind of go farther back. And so he says, like, feel the crush of the bone, pull it out. There is bone back there. Abnormally large. This almost looks AI generated, but it was like way before AI. And future Arnold is just smiling at him and pop, there it comes out with like one tiny piece of blood on it. Sure, okay. So let's break down this scene. So first of all, this is actually a real surgery. So when you are trying to get into the brain, there's two ways you can do it. You can pop the top, which I got my skull here. You can, let's see, pop the top. Or you can use the inside of the nose as an access point to get into the center of the brain right in here. So basically, this scene is actually kind of accurate, shockingly. Very grisly, hard to watch, but super memorable. And what they're doing here is they're actually talking about something called sinus surgery to get into a recess of the brain, the very, very center part of the brain, in order to remove tumors, and back in the 1960s, even to treat diabetes. So you can imagine, if you're trying to get into the very middle of this structure, if you had to go through the top, you have to pull the whole brain aside just to get into this one little area in the center right here. Another way of looking at it is on this model, you see you've got the eyes, and then if we tilt it back, the eyes have nerves that cross-hatch, and right below them is where they were trying to get in, and that's where the tracker was in Total Recall. So basically, what you can do is you can go in through the nose. You have to break some bone. So that part of the scene is totally accurate. So sometimes you push aside bone in the septum. That's the very back part of the septum where people get kind of like a deviated septum. And then once you get into the very back sinus, which is called the sphenoid sinus, you got two giant arteries next to you. So it is a risky surgery. There's no doubt that catastrophic things can happen during and after this surgery. But if you safely get into that spot and you avoid those two blood vessels, you can drill carefully, not like crunch like it is in the movie, and you drill out some of that bone, and that gland, the pituitary gland, which is a very important gland in regulating how your whole body works, is sitting right there. Sometimes you get tumors in that gland, so you can remove tumors that way. And back in the 1960s, what they used to do is they used to go through the nose and implant radioactive seeds, not trackers, seeds, radioactive seeds that would actually kill the gland, so it didn't really work. And the interesting thing about that, it was actually the only treatment for type 1 diabetes. And believe it or not, my mom, back in the 1960s, when she was training to be a doctor in England, worked on some of those studies. So they would implant these radioactive seeds in, it would shut down the whole gland. People would have to take all kinds of other stuff to make their body work, like thyroid hormone and other hormones, so that they could actually grow, but their diabetes would be cured. So if you believe it, the tracker removal scene in Total Recall is absolutely 100% a real surgery. It is used on a day-to-day basis throughout the world to treat tumors in that very, very center part of the skull, the pituitary, in the center of the brain. To my knowledge, it has not been used to remove a brain tracker, but in Total Recall, they 100% get it right with the way they describe the scene. Only minor nitpick I would have is that when you do that surgery, basically once you get through that bone that's lining that very back part of that sinus, then you're gonna hit the sac that holds the brain. So the brain has a fluid-filled sac around it, so that if you're moving side to side, the brain will kind of have a little bit more of a fluidy, it's almost like a fish tank, where it just kind of sits in there and it's able to move a little bit slower if you have movement side to side. If you get hit on the side of your head, like you're playing sports, football, and you get a concussion, that's when the brain actually kind of moves too quickly through the sac, hits the side of the inside of the skull, and causes a brain bruise. That's kind of what a concussion is. That can even lead to some bleeding sometimes. And so the sac is not foolproof, but in general, it protects the brain. And it's at a certain pressure. It's like a pressurized water system. So when you open up that little hole in the sac to get into that gland, you are gonna get some of that brain fluid coming out. And so you have to cover that up at the end of surgery. Arnold does nothing nothing like that. He just rips the thing out, 1 drop of blood, no leakage through his nose, no bleeding, totally unrealistic. But then again, he's Arnold Schwarzenegger, so what really is the definition of realistic for him? So I hope you like this video. I'm an occupational plastic surgeon. If you'd like more videos like this, please consider subscribing to our channel or commenting below, and we'll bring you more from Hollywood in terms of what is real and what is not in the future.